A murderer who kills one after another, but the police cannot reach him. One by one, he kills about 5 people, all women and all prostitutes. He doesn't stop there. He sends the police half a kidney and a letter saying he ate the other half. When the police start looking for him, he disappears and he still hasn't been found. You're right, I'm talking about Jack the Ripper. So today, we will try to examine all the documents from beginning to end to find out why Jack the Ripper was not caught and where he could have gone and whether it is possible to discover his true identity with modern technology. Before I start, if you are new to the channel and love history, definitely subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. Thank you. Our story begins in England in the Victorian era of 1800. The streets are dark, the air smells of burning coal, and we walk along cobblestone streets to a district called Whitechapel. On the day, August 31, 1888, the Scottish police launched an investigation into an unknown murderer who never found. You could say that the world's most elusive killer has claimed his first victim. The first dead body was found around 3:40 am. Her throat was served by 2 deep cuts. Her lower part of abdomen was partly ripped open by a deep jagged wound. Her vagina was stabbed twice, and then the killer fled, leaving her bleeding. The police began an investigation, but a week passed without finding any trace, and then on September 8, 1888, another body was discovered. Upon seeing the body, the police realized that it was the work of the same murderer because the murders were committed in the same way, but in a more brutal way. 2 murders have been committed and the police have no leads. 2 weeks passed in this manner, probably while the murderer was asleep. Then on the morning of September 30, 1888, 2 bodies were found. The pattern of the murders was the same and like usual, the murderer left no trace. Almost 2 months passed and the police still don't know the name of the murderer. On November 9, 1888, a strange incident occurred. Another dead body was discovered, but not from the street like other murders, but from inside the house. The last known victim of Jack the Ripper, Mary Jane Kelly's dead body discovered from her home, lying in bed in the single room where she lived. Again, the crime pattern is same, but this time her heart is missing from the body. Now the question is, how killer got into her room and why was he cutting these organs? After 5 murders, panic spread in London. Everyone realized that they were not safe from this killer even at home. The police started an investigation, going door to door and interrogating, but they found nothing. But who is this killer? Now, if you look at the killing pattern, almost everyone is missing an organ from their body, the uterus. But why? Before that, let's find out the backgrounds of these victims. The first victim, Mary Ann Nichols, she was 43 at the time of her death. Her occupation was domestic servant and a prostitute. Next victim, Annie Chapman. She died at the age of 47. Her occupation was flower seller, beggar, and a casual prostitute. Elizabeth Stride also died at the age of 46. She was cleaner and a casual prostitute. Catherine Edoes died at the age of 46. She was casual prostitute and a hawker. And the last one, Mary Jane Kelly. But she was 25 at the age she died. Her occupation also prostitution. Did you notice something? The entire ladies has same occupation, prostitution. So was Jack the Ripper obsessed with prostitutes? Seeing the killing pattern, the police began to have many suspicions. The first of which was probably he was a doctor or a butcher, someone who has knowledge about the human body. Otherwise, how could be cutting off various organs from everyone's bodies? The police suspect list is very large. There are many people's names. I will tell you about some famous suspects. You judge, could it be any of them? The first one, Montague John Druitt. Montague John Druitt was born on August 15, 1857, in Winburn Minster, Dorset, England. He came from a respected middle-class family. His father, William Druitt, was a prominent surgeon, and his mother, Anne Druitt, had a history of mental illness, which may have influenced perceptions about Montague later in life. Druitt was well educated, attending Winchester College, a prestigious boarding school, and later New College, Oxford, where he studied law and played cricket. Druitt's life took a dark turn in the late 1800s. He lost his job as a schoolmaster at a boarding school in Blackheath under unclear circumstances. Just 2 weeks after his dismissal, Druitt's body was found floating in the river. Thames on December 31st, 1888. It was determined that he died by suicide, likely on December 4th, 1888. He left a note suggesting that his mental health had deteriorated. In the early 1890s, Sir Melville Magnaten, an assistant commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, mentioned Druitt as a potential suspect in an internal memo. Magnaten noted that Druitt was a sexually insane individual who died shortly after the final Ripper murder, but there is no evidence he was ever in Whitechapel during the murders or had the violent tendencies needed to commit such heinous acts. Supporters of the theory point to his ultimately death and Magnaten's memo as a reasons to consider him a serious suspect. Next one, Francis Tumblety, born in 1833 in Ireland. He emigrated to the United States as a child with his family. His early life remains somewhat unclear, but as an adult, he gained fame and infamy as a self-proclaimed doctor and peddler of herbal medicines. Tumblety is perhaps most famous for being one of the many suspects in the Jack the Ripper case. During the infamous 1888 murders in London, he was in England and was arrested on unrelated charges of gross indecency. After being released on bail, he fled to France and then back to the United States, which raised suspicions. Some contemporary investigators and modern theorists have linked him to the Ripper case, citing his hatred of women, particularly his disdain for women of ill repute, and his possible knowledge of anatomy, as evidenced by his alleged fascination with collecting human organs. However, there is no concrete evidence tying Tumblety to the murders, and most experts today dismiss him as a likely suspect. And the last one, Prince Albert Victor. Theory claims Prince Albert Victor had a secret affair with a working-class woman named Annie Crook and fathered her child. Allegedly, the royal family sought to cover up the scandal to protect the monarchy's reputation. According to this theory, the murders were carried out by royal agents or doctors to silence anyone who knew about the affair, including the victims who were supposedly blackmailing the prince. Another variation involves Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's royal physician. Some stories allege that Gull was tasked with eliminating witnesses to protect the prince. Gull himself has been named as a potential Ripper suspect in his theory, with Prince Albert Victor portrayed as the figure behind the conspiracy. Despite the intrigue, historians and criminologists have largely dismissed these theories for several reasons. Records show the prince was not in London during some of the murders. For example, he was attending official engagements in Yorkshire when Catherine Eddowes and Elizabeth Stride were killed. While the police and you are busy getting the identity of the murderer, the killer immediately sends a letter to the police station with a box. And not only police, the newspapers and other individuals receive these type letters, and these all letters claim to have been written by the killer himself with the blood. These letters are known as the Dear Boss letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, and the From Hell letter. But here is another twist. The Saucy Jackie postcard letter came with a small box in which was a half of a human kidney, preserved in spirits of wine, and the writer or the killer claimed the other part he fried and ate. After receiving all these brutal letters, everyone in London thought that this time the murderer would be caught. But no, the murderer disappeared into thin air. After that, more murders were committed in London, but they were not as brutal as the Jack the Rippers. Anyway, after that the murderer disappeared forever. No one knows what happened to this murderer after that. But think about it, which discovered the first body? Charles Allen Lechmere. He was a delivery driver by profession. Many people think that since he was a driver, he knew the streets very well. Maybe he thought he would start killing and mutilating, but at the time another gentleman came there, so he did not mutilate. So the body of the first victim was not so brutal. The location of his home and the killing stage is so near. So the Charles Allen Lechmere, the Jack the Ripper? It is not possible to answer this question because he was never questioned in any way. He was never put on the suspect list. Can we unravel his mystery with modern technology? In 2014, forensic scientists claim to have analyzed mitochondrial DNA from a soul allegedly found near the body of one of the victims, Catherine Eddowes. The DNA linked the soul to Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber who was a suspect at the time. However, this evidence has been criticized for contamination and lack of direct link to the crime scene. Using modern mapping techniques, experts have analyzed the location of the murders to suggest where the Ripper might have lived. Many studies point to a small area in Whitechapel, reinforcing suspicions about Kosminski, who lived nearby. Criminal profilers have applied modern psychology to create a profile of the Reaper. He is thought to have been a young, local male with deep-seated anger issues, possibly triggered by personal trauma or disturbed upbringing. But the question arises, why wasn't Jack the Ripper caught? There are many reasons for that. In the 1800s, forensic science was in its infancy. DNA analysis, fingerprinting, and the advanced crime scene investigations didn't exist. Detectives relied mostly on witness testimonies and circumstantial evidence, which weren't always reliable or sufficient to identify a killer. The Reaper operated in Whitechapel, a densely populated and impoverished area in London. After each murder, curious crowds would gather, often contaminating the crime scenes. This made it nearly impossible for investigators to gather even the limited evidence available at the time. Jack the Ripper struck late at night, targeting vulnerable women, mainly prostitutes, in the dark and scheduled areas. His attacks were quick and brutal, giving him enough time to escape unnoticed before anyone could intervene. The investigation was marred by poor coordination between the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police. These two agencies often didn't share information, leading to missed opportunities to piece together evidence. Another theory is that the Reaper stopped killing, possibly due to death, imprisonment, or relocation. Without new murders, the trail went cold, and the case eventually became inactive. Now, 135 years later, the investigation is baseless because all the people of the time are gone. London has changed today, so Jack the Ripper's past is lost. We don't even know what his real name is. But if it was the police barber or Charles, then think about his friends, relatives who didn't even know that a terrible, brutal murderer was living among them. Finally, I will say this, it is not possible to find out who Jack the Ripper is. It has remained a mystery in the past. So for today, don't forget to tell us how you felt. What do you think about the Jack the Ripper? I really want to know. Let me know in the comments and tell me which murder mystery you want to hear about next. Thanks a lot for watching the full video. See you in the next video. Stay well.